Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz begins with a powerful observation. People often try to change their results without changing the image they hold of themselves. They want more success, more confidence, better habits, stronger relationships, and greater peace of mind. But even when they work hard, they often snap back to old patterns. According to Maltz, this happens because every person carries an internal self-image, and that self-image quietly controls what feels natural, possible, and believable. Maltz came to this idea through his work as a plastic surgeon. He noticed something surprising. Some patients changed their appearance and almost immediately seemed to change their personality as well. They became more relaxed, more confident, more socially open. But other patients experienced physical improvement without emotional change. Even after a visible transformation, they still felt unattractive, inadequate, or limited. Their outer life changed, but their inner identity stayed the same. This led Maltz to a major conclusion. Human beings do not live only according to facts. They live according to the picture they accept as true about themselves. If someone sees themselves as shy, unlucky, inferior, incapable, or undeserving, they will often behave in ways that confirm that identity. Even opportunities can feel uncomfortable if they do not match the self-image. Success may be sabotaged. Praise may be rejected. Growth may be resisted. This is why Psycho-Cybernetics places so much emphasis on the self-image. Maltz argues that you cannot consistently outperform the identity you believe in. You may force yourself temporarily. You may create short bursts of progress. But lasting change usually requires changing the internal blueprint. This idea is both challenging and liberating. It is challenging because it means many limitations are being reinforced from the inside, not just imposed from the outside. But it is liberating because it suggests you are not stuck with your current identity. The self-image can be updated. It can be retrained. It can become healthier, stronger, and more aligned with the person you want to be. The first major lesson of the book is simple. If you want a new life, you need more than new goals. You need a new internal picture of who you are. Once that changes, behavior starts changing in a more natural and lasting way. One of the central ideas in Psycho-Cybernetics is that the human mind works like a goal-seeking mechanism. Maltz uses the example of machines that can detect where they are, compare that to a target, and then adjust their direction. He argues that the human brain and nervous system function in a similar way. Once a target is accepted, the mind begins working toward it, often through processes below conscious awareness. This concept is important because it changes how we think about behavior. Many people assume they need to consciously control every detail of change. They try to force every action with constant tension and effort. Maltz suggests a different approach. He believes the mind works best when it is given a clear goal, a believable self-image, and enough trust to move toward the desired result. But here is the crucial point. The system works with whatever target you give it. If your inner target is failure, embarrassment, rejection, or limitation, the mind can organize around that too. That is why people sometimes keep repeating negative patterns. Their internal guidance system is not broken. It is simply pointed in the wrong direction. For example, a person may say they want confidence, but if their self-image still says, "I am awkward and not good with people," then their actions will keep moving toward that familiar identity. They may hesitate, overthink, avoid eye contact, or withdraw socially, not because change is impossible, but because the internal target has not yet shifted. This is why Maltz emphasizes mental rehearsal and clear internal direction. If the mind is a goal-striving system, then what you repeatedly imagine and emotionally accept matters a great deal. When you begin picturing yourself acting with more calm, competence, and courage, you are not just daydreaming. You are helping reprogram the target. A practical lesson here is that clarity matters. Vague hopes do not guide the mind very well, but specific, believable targets do. Instead of saying, "I want a better life," you might define the exact kind of behavior you want to embody. more composure in conversations, more focus during work, more ease under pressure, more consistency with habits. The deeper message is powerful. Your mind is always moving toward some image, some expectation, some internal destination. The question is whether that destination is helping you or limiting you. Once you understand that, you stop treating negative patterns like random bad luck and start seeing them as signals that the internal target needs to change. Maxwell Maltz argues that performance in almost every area of life is influenced by self-image. This includes confidence, communication, learning, achievement, relationships, and emotional resilience. The reason is simple. People tend to act in ways that match the identity they believe to be true. If you see yourself as disciplined, you are more likely to follow through. If you see yourself as someone who panics under pressure, you are more likely to tense up when it matters. If you see yourself as capable of growth, you behave differently than if you quietly believe you are flawed or limited. This explains why some people underperform even when they have ability. Their outer skill may be real, but their inner identity does not fully allow them to express it. In important moments, they become overly self-conscious. They second-guess themselves. They fear judgment. They act in ways that confirm the weaker version of themselves. Maltz's point is not that self-image magically replaces skill or effort. Rather, self-image sets the boundaries of what feels natural. A person may be talented enough to do much more, but if success feels unfamiliar or undeserved, they may unconsciously pull back. This is why lasting improvement often requires identity-level work. It is not enough to say, "I want better results." You have to begin accepting, at a deep level, that better results belong to someone like you. Not someday, not for other people, but for you. That shift can start small. A person who has always seen themselves as disorganized might begin building a new image as someone who keeps simple systems. A person who believes they are socially awkward might begin seeing themselves as someone learning to become calm and present with others. These are not fake statements. They are transition identities, and they create room for growth. A useful practical question is this: what kind of person do my habits and emotional reactions suggest I believe myself to be? The answer may reveal why certain changes feel difficult. When the behavior you want conflicts with the identity you hold, resistance appears. Maltz wants readers to understand that self-image is not destiny, but it is powerful. It quietly shapes your comfort zone, your expectations, and your results. Once you begin updating it, change stops feeling like constant self-conflict and starts feeling more like alignment. The key lesson is that improvement becomes more stable when it is supported by identity. When your self-image changes, your performance often rises to meet it. A major theme in Psycho-Cybernetics is the power of imagination. Maltz believes that imagination is not just entertainment. It is one of the most influential forces in shaping behavior. The images you repeatedly hold in your mind can strengthen confidence or deepen limitation. Many people use imagination negatively without realizing it. They imagine failure before it happens. They replay embarrassment. They picture themselves freezing, getting rejected, making mistakes, being judged, or falling short. These mental pictures create tension and expectation. Then, when real situations arrive, the mind and body often follow the script that has already been rehearsed. This is one reason anxiety can feel so convincing. The mind keeps practicing negative outcomes until they feel familiar, and familiarity starts feeling like truth. Maltz argues that this process can be reversed. Just as imagination can produce fear and self-doubt, it can also be used to create better internal patterns. He encourages readers to rehearse success mentally, not in a fantasy-based way where everything becomes magical, but in a practical way where you picture yourself responding more effectively. You imagine staying composed in conversation. You imagine performing with calm focus. You imagine acting with confidence, solving problems, and handling challenges with more balance. This matters because the nervous system responds strongly to mental imagery. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity reduces tension. When a better version of your behavior becomes mentally familiar, it starts feeling more reachable in real life. A practical use of this principle is to spend a few minutes each day visualizing specific moments you want to improve. See yourself walking into the meeting calmly. Hear yourself speaking clearly. Feel yourself staying relaxed instead of defensive. Imagine yourself finishing the task instead of avoiding it. The more sensory and specific the rehearsal, the more powerful it becomes. Maltz's message is that imagination should be treated like a tool. If you do not guide it, it may drift toward fear, memory, and insecurity. But if you use it deliberately, it can help shape a stronger self-image and support better action. The important thing is consistency. One positive mental rehearsal will not erase years of negative conditioning. But repeated imagery combined with real-world action can begin changing what feels normal. The deeper lesson here is that your mind is always practicing something. The question is whether it is practicing failure or preparation. Once you recognize that, imagination becomes a powerful part of personal change. One of the more surprising ideas in Psycho-Cybernetics is that trying too hard can actually interfere with performance. Maltz observes that many people believe success comes from constant tension, over-control, and strain. But in many areas of life, excessive effort makes things worse. Think of public speaking, sports, creative work, conversation, or even sleep. The harder you force it with anxiety and tension, the more unnatural it becomes. You start monitoring yourself too closely. You lose rhythm. You become stiff, self-conscious, and mentally crowded. Maltz argues that this happens because the goal-seeking mechanism of the mind works better when it is guided and then trusted, not when it is suffocated by fear and hyper-control. Once a target is set and preparation has been done, there needs to be a degree of release, a degree of confidence, a willingness to let trained processes operate. This is why relaxation becomes such an important part of the book. Relaxation is not laziness. It is not passivity. It is the absence of unnecessary internal resistance. It allows the mind and body to function more naturally. For many people, this lesson is transformative. They have spent years believing that tension equals seriousness. They clench mentally and physically in an attempt to perform better. But often, what they need is not more force. It is more calm. Maltz recommends practices that reduce inner strain, including quiet rest, mental rehearsal, and creating moments where the mind is not constantly flooded with pressure. These practices help reset the nervous system and create better conditions for accurate, skillful action. A practical takeaway here is to notice where you are over-efforting. Are you forcing conversations? Forcing confidence? Forcing productivity? Forcing certainty? Sometimes improvement begins by reducing unnecessary pressure and allowing trained behavior to emerge with more ease. This does not mean abandoning discipline. It means understanding that disciplined preparation and calm execution often work better together than anxious pushing. The person who is mentally relaxed can usually see more clearly, respond more intelligently, and recover more quickly. The deeper message is that many people are not blocked only by lack of ability. They are blocked by internal interference. When that interference softens, performance often improves naturally. Psycho-Cybernetics teaches that calm is not weakness. In many situations, it is one of the highest forms of strength. Maxwell Maltz treats success and failure not just as isolated events, but as patterns reinforced over time. In his view, both are habits. They are built through repeated thoughts, repeated emotional responses, repeated interpretations, and repeated actions. This matters because people often treat success as something mysterious. They see it as a trait some people naturally possess. But Maltz argues that success often follows certain internal habits: confidence, accurate thinking, emotional balance, willingness to act, goal direction, and the ability to learn from mistakes. Failure also develops through habits. Not always dramatic ones, but subtle ones. Constant self-criticism, avoidance, fear of rejection, overthinking, defensiveness, expecting the worst, quitting too quickly, rehearsing defeat mentally before acting. Over time, these habits create a self-confirming cycle. The good news is that habits can be retrained. If failure patterns were learned, they can be unlearned. If success habits were missing, they can be developed. This makes change feel more practical. You do not need to become a completely different person overnight. You need to build new inner and outer patterns. Maltz describes several qualities associated with a success-oriented mindset, including a sense of direction, understanding, courage, charity, esteem, self-confidence, and self-acceptance. Whether or not every word feels modern, the deeper idea remains valuable. Healthy results tend to come from healthy inner patterns. A practical way to use this lesson is to stop asking only, "Why am I like this?" and start asking, "What am I repeatedly practicing?" Maybe you are practicing delay. Maybe you are practicing self-doubt. Maybe you are practicing composure. Maybe you are practicing clarity. Life often reflects repeated inner training. This perspective is empowering because habits feel changeable. They are not fixed identity statements. They are patterns that grow stronger with repetition and weaker when replaced. A useful exercise is to identify one failure habit that keeps showing up. Then identify one success habit that could replace it. For example, replacing self-criticism with constructive evaluation. Replacing avoidance with one small action. Replacing mental rehearsal of disaster with mental rehearsal of calm performance. The key lesson is that success usually does not arrive as one dramatic moment. It grows through patterns that become normal. And when the right habits become normal, a new life begins to feel possible. A major reason people stay stuck is that they keep treating the past as proof of the future. Psycho-Cybernetics challenges this deeply. Maltz argues that past failures, humiliations, mistakes, and disappointments often continue influencing behavior because they become part of the self-image. A person fails once, and instead of seeing it as an event, they begin seeing it as identity. They were rejected, so now they feel rejectable. They made mistakes, so now they feel incompetent. They were embarrassed, so now they expect embarrassment. The past becomes a script that the present keeps following. Maltz wants readers to break this pattern. He does not deny that painful experiences matter, but he refuses to let them become permanent definitions. He believes one of the most important steps in personal growth is separating what happened from who you are. This requires a different relationship with memory. Instead of reliving old failures as if they reveal your true nature, you begin seeing them as outdated data. Something happened. You learned something. But that event does not have to remain your internal blueprint. This can be especially powerful for people who carry long-standing shame. Shame makes the past feel alive. It makes old mistakes feel current and identity-based. Maltz offers a more liberating path. Update the self-image, and the emotional grip of the past begins to weaken. A practical way to apply this is to identify a recurring painful memory that still shapes your behavior. Then ask, what conclusion did I draw about myself from that event? Perhaps it was, I am not good enough, people always judge me, I ruin opportunities, or I cannot recover from mistakes. Once you see the conclusion clearly, you can challenge it. Then begin replacing it with a healthier belief supported by new action. Not empty denial, but active redefinition. I can learn from mistakes. I can improve how I handle this. That event happened, but it does not own my future. Maltz's point is not to pretend the past never happened. It is to stop worshiping it as prophecy. The future does not need to be built from old humiliation. The deeper lesson is this. Healing and growth often begin when you stop letting yesterday's pain tell you who you are today. Once the self-image is updated, the past loses much of its power to direct the future. One of the most important and surprisingly modern ideas in psycho-cybernetics is that self-acceptance is essential for real change. Many people assume they must dislike themselves enough to improve. They believe self-criticism will drive discipline and self-rejection will push transformation. Maltz argues the opposite. He believes that healthy change grows from accepting yourself as a person of value, even while working to improve specific behaviors or results. This distinction matters. You can dislike a habit without hating yourself. You can correct performance without attacking your worth. You can pursue growth without building your life on internal rejection. When people lack self-acceptance, they often become divided inside. One part is constantly accusing, pressuring, and condemning. The other part becomes defensive, exhausted, or rebellious. This creates internal conflict rather than growth. Self-acceptance changes the emotional tone of improvement. Instead of saying, "I must fix myself because I am not enough," you begin saying, "I am worthy of growth, and I want to develop what is already possible in me." This creates far more stability. Maltz does not use self-acceptance as an excuse for laziness. He sees it as realism. You are a human being with strengths, limits, mistakes, and potential. Denying your value does not make you stronger. It usually makes you more fearful, rigid, and discouraged. A practical step here is to separate identity from performance. If something goes wrong, do not jump immediately from "I made a mistake" to "I am a failure." If you struggle socially, do not leap from "I felt awkward" to "I am fundamentally deficient." Those identity conclusions poison growth. Instead, practice language that protects dignity while allowing honesty. "That did not go well, but I can learn from it. I want to improve this area, but I do not need to attack myself to do it." This is the kind of inner posture that supports long-term progress. Self-acceptance also helps reduce comparison. When you are more secure in your own value, other people's strengths become less threatening. You can admire, learn, and improve without feeling diminished. The deeper lesson is powerful. Change works better when it grows from respect rather than self-hatred. When self-acceptance becomes your foundation, discipline becomes steadier, confidence becomes healthier, and growth becomes more sustainable. One of the most actionable tools in psycho-cybernetics is mental rehearsal. Maltz believes that if the self-image can be shaped by inner pictures, then deliberate mental practice can help build a new identity and improve performance. Mental rehearsal means vividly imagining yourself behaving in the way you want to behave. Not as a distant fantasy, but as a practical training method. You picture yourself entering situations with calm. You see yourself speaking clearly. You imagine yourself responding to difficulty with steadiness. You rehearse the version of yourself you want to strengthen. This works because repeated mental imagery can make new patterns feel more familiar. And what feels familiar often becomes easier to express in real life. If you have spent years rehearsing failure without realizing it, you can begin consciously rehearsing better outcomes. Maltz encourages doing this regularly and with emotional realism. The goal is not to imagine yourself as a superhero. The goal is to create believable images of improved functioning. Maybe you are not imagining perfection. Maybe you are imagining being 10% calmer, more focused, more disciplined, or more confident. That is enough to begin shifting the internal picture. This technique becomes especially useful before specific challenges. Before a presentation, a conversation, an interview, a performance, or an important decision, you can mentally walk through the event as the version of yourself you want to embody. This reduces novelty and supports better execution. A practical structure is simple. Find a quiet moment. Relax physically. Then imagine the scene in detail. See what you would see. Hear what you would hear. Feel yourself responding well. Let the image become clear, calm, and repeatable. Then return to it daily. What makes this effective is repetition plus action. Mental rehearsal alone is not enough. It should support real-world behavior. But when combined with real action, it helps bridge the gap between current identity and future identity. Over time, these rehearsals stop feeling artificial. The better response starts feeling more normal. And that is the real goal. Not a temporary burst of confidence, but a gradually updated self-image. The deeper lesson is that identity is not shaped only by past experience. It can also be shaped by intentional inner practice. When you rehearse a healthier version of yourself consistently, you begin teaching your mind what to move toward. By the end of Psycho-Cybernetics, the big message becomes clear. The problem is not that people lack potential. The problem is that many are living under outdated internal programming. They are following a self-image shaped by old experiences, old fears, old labels, and old emotional conclusions. That program keeps generating familiar results. Maxwell Maltz offers a different path. Update the program. Change the self-image. Give the mind a better target. Rehearse better outcomes. Reduce destructive self-criticism. Practice calm. Build success habits. Stop using the past as a permanent identity. Learn to act from a healthier internal blueprint. What makes this book so enduring is that it focuses on identity before tactics. Many self-help books talk about goals, routines, and achievement. Psycho-Cybernetics goes deeper. It asks whether your internal model of yourself is capable of supporting the life you say you want. This is why the book remains relevant. Many people know what to do. They know they should speak up, take action, be more disciplined, trust themselves more, and stop repeating old patterns. But knowledge alone does not create change if the self-image still says, "That is not really me." Maltz's answer is not perfection. He does not ask you to become flawless. He asks you to become better programmed, more aligned, more accepting, more intentional, more supportive from the inside. A practical way to apply the entire book is to choose one area where your self-image is clearly limiting you. Then begin working on it in 3 ways. Update the story you believe about yourself, rehearse the improved version mentally, and take small real-world actions that confirm the new identity. That process may look simple, but it is powerful. Every time you act in alignment with the healthier self-image, you strengthen it. And every time you strengthen it, better behavior becomes more natural. The final lesson of Psycho-Cybernetics is that personal change is not just about forcing better habits. It is about becoming someone for whom those habits make sense. Someone who can carry success without sabotage. Someone who can handle growth without fear. Someone who no longer needs to stay loyal to a smaller version of themselves. That is the real transformation this book points toward. Not perfection, but reprogramming. Not pretending, but updating. Not becoming someone fake, but becoming more fully the person you are capable of being.